My backstory, a not-so-humble homeowner's revenge. My daughter-in-law Vanessa laughed, a drink in hand, and declared I looked like her cleaner, right there in my own backyard. There I was, wearing the same blouse my late husband Richard proposed to me in, and my son Daniel just stood there. But before we dive into the juicy bits, do me a solid and hit that like and subscribe button. And please tell me and everyone else, what is one life lesson every Canadian needs to hear before it is too late? Share it in the comments below. EH. Thanks a bunch. I had absolutely no intention of showing up at that weekend bash, not after the way Vanessa had been carrying on for months. Little snide remarks, rolling her eyes when I walked into a room, whispering to Daniel that I was too old to keep up. But Daniel insisted. It is just a few pals, Mom. Nothing fancy, he said over the phone, his voice tight, just like it always is, when he is trying to hide something. So I ironed my absolute best blouse, the one Richard gave me for our 30th anniversary, the one he said made me look like class wrapped in sunshine. I dabbed on a bit of blush, tied back my hair, and told myself it was just a casual get-together. When I arrived, the backyard was already buzzing. String lights, catered grub, women in fancy heels holding cocktails. Exactly the kind of crowd Vanessa loves to impress. I barely had time to put my purse down before her voice cut through the chatter like a knife. Oh my God, does not Margot look like Colette, my old cleaner from down east? She let out a laugh, not a quiet chuckle, but a loud performative guffaw, the kind meant to draw others in, and they did. Laughter spread across that backyard like a prairie wildfire. I stood there, holding a glass of red wine someone had just handed me, feeling my cheeks burn. I looked at Daniel. He was across the yard, chatting with a guy in a golf cap. Our eyes met. He looked away. That hurt more than the insult, more than all that laughter. My own son, pretending he did not hear a thing. I turned slowly, walked towards the guest bathroom, and locked the door behind me. I sat on the closed toilet lid, hands trembling, staring at my reflection in the vanity mirror. My lipstick was smudged. I looked tired. No, utterly exhausted. And it was not the first time I thought, if Richard were still alive, none of this would be happening. Vanessa had started acting this way right after he passed. She used to put on this fake sweetness around me, but once he was gone, it was like the mask just fell off. I always assumed Daniel did not notice, or maybe he was just too busy to care. But tonight confirmed it. He saw, and he did absolutely nothing. I splashed water on my face and waited until the sounds of guests drifted towards the front of the house before stepping out. I tried to leave without drawing attention, but Elena, our housekeeper, was standing in the hallway, folding napkins. She gave me a look, not pity, but understanding. She did not say anything then, just a single nod. That was the moment something inside me started to shift. Not explode, not break, just shift, like a gear clicking into a new position. I was not angry yet, not fully, but I was aware, painfully aware, that this house no longer felt like mine. I had raised Daniel within these walls, cooked every Christmas dinner in that kitchen, brought Richard home here after his first heart surgery, and now I was being laughed at in my own backyard by a woman who had not even been around when Daniel still had baby teeth. On the drive home, I did not cry. I just drove in silence, both hands on the wheel, the streetlights flickering through the windshield like static. I pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine, and sat there for a long time with the keys in my lap. I thought about all the times I would defended Vanessa to my friends. She is just high-strung, I would say. She means well. But now I wondered, how long had I been lying to myself? And more importantly, how long had Daniel been lying to me? I did not know then that Elena would come to me with something that would change everything, something tucked away in a drawer that should have never been opened. But that would come later. Tonight, all I knew was this. My daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eye in front of a crowd of people and said I looked like her cleaner. And my son looked away. That is the moment I stopped being afraid of causing a scene, because the scene had already been caused, and they started it. I just had not decided how I would end it yet. The morning after the party, I was still wearing the same clothes. I had not slept a wink. I would poured myself a mug of black coffee around 6:00 a.m. and just stood in the kitchen, staring at the fridge where Richard's old fishing magnet still held up a faded photo of Daniel at 12, covered in cake. I kept thinking about that moment, Vanessa's voice slicing through the laughter. The way Daniel's eyes dropped. I replayed it over and over like a punishment, trying to figure out if I would miss something, if maybe I would misunderstood, but I had not. Around 8:00 a.m. Elena called. "Can I stop by?" she asked, which was strange. She never asked. She just showed up and knocked, like she always had for the last 15 years. "Of course," I said. 20 minutes later, she was at my door, holding a small tote bag and looking more serious than I would ever seen her. She did not even sit down. She walked straight to the counter, opened her bag, and laid out a folded manila envelope. "You need to see this," she said quietly. Inside was a stack of printed documents, bank letters, some kind of loan paperwork, and one thing that made my stomach drop to the floor, a second mortgage agreement. My name was on it, my signature. Only it was not mine. "I found it tucked in the bottom drawer of Daniel's office desk last night," she said. "He left it open when they went out back." I do not know why I looked. I just felt something was off. I ran my fingers over the signature. It was close, but not mine. Whoever forged it had practiced. My mouth went dry. "Why would he do this?" I whispered, though I already knew. Money. Always money. "I think Vanessa pushed him," Elena said. "They have been fighting about renovations. She has been saying things like, 'Your mom will be gone soon anyway.'" She paused, her eyes filling with a fierce heat. "Margot, I was not going to say anything, but after last night, after what she said in front of everyone," I nodded, unable to speak. She was not just mocking me socially, they were planning financially, and they were not just waiting for me to die. They were trying to speed it up, legally speaking. I felt like I was underwater. "I do not know what to do," I finally said. Elena stepped closer, her voice low. "You do," she said. "You just do not want to be the kind of woman who does it." "But she has already been that kind of woman to you." I blinked fast. It was the first time anyone had put it so plainly. Elena had always been kind. Even when things got tense in the house, she never took sides. But now she looked ready to light the whole place on fire for me. I picked up the documents and stared at them like they were written in another language. "Do you think Richard knew?" I asked. "He always said Daniel was smart, but soft." Elena hesitated. "There is more," she said, reaching into her bag again. This time she pulled out a worn envelope with my husband's handwriting on the front. My name in cursive. "I found this behind one of the books in the den. I think it was meant for you." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, written with Richard's neat, looping penmanship. It was not a letter. It was a warning, a journal entry. "I worry Vanessa's ambition is getting into Daniel's bones," he wrote. "She is not cruel. She is careful. And I think he is letting her turn him into something he is not. Margot, if anything happens to me, promise me you will watch her closely. Don't let charm make you blind." I clutched it like a lifeline. He had seen it long before I ever dared admit it. He had seen what she was. And now I was looking at proof. Legal proof. Emotional proof. I was not crazy. I was not paranoid. They had made me feel like a burden in my own house, while smiling through. But not anymore. "You are right," I said to Elena, my voice steadier now. "I do know what to do, and I am going to do it." I spent that entire afternoon pacing my living room with the envelope clutched in one hand and my coffee gone cold in the other. I could not get Richard's words out of my head, "Don't let charm make you blind." He always had a way of seeing straight through people. He had warned me without saying it to my face, which felt cruel at first, like he did not trust me enough to just tell me the truth. But I knew my husband. He was not hiding it to protect himself. He was protecting me. I would always hated confrontation, and he knew it. He must have thought if he put it on paper, I would read it when I was ready. Well, I was ready now. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. So I walked straight to the hall closet, pulled out the metal lockbox where we kept our will, house deed, old insurance papers, everything that mattered. I had not touched it since his funeral. The key was still on the same ring with my church fob. Inside, everything smelled faintly of old paper and dust. I went straight for the folder labeled Trust and Will and flipped through. There it was, in black and white. Richard had left everything to me. Full ownership of the house, control of all accounts. Not a single clause left anything to Daniel or Vanessa while I was alive. I sat down, spread the pages across the coffee table, and just stared. For years I had believed that maybe Daniel had been helping me, managing things, advising me, making decisions because he cared. But now I saw it clearly. He had not been managing anything. He had been inching his way into power, one quiet signature at a time. And that forged mortgage, it was not just desperate, it was premeditated. My chest tightened as I reached for the last envelope. In the box. I have forgotten all about it until now. A small brown package Richard had marked private. I opened it slowly, expecting more legal papers, but instead found a small, leather-bound journal. His journal, the one he used to scribble in at night when he could not sleep, always claiming it helped him sort his brain. I flipped to the final entries, hands trembling. The first few pages were his usual ramblings, stock market updates, bits about his back pain, frustration about Daniel's decision to quit his old job and go into consulting with Vanessa's brother. But then came something that made my stomach churn. Vanessa wants Daniel to accelerate the future, he wrote. She does not say it directly, but I know what she means. They want control. They are waiting for me to die and for Margot to fold. I wish I would handle the trust differently. I thought giving everything to Margot would protect her. But now I worry it made her a target. I closed the journal and gripped it to my chest like a shield. It was not paranoia. It was not overthinking. It was happening. They were coming for what I built. For the home where I raised my child. For the money Richard spent 4 decades earning. For my peace. I got up and opened my laptop. I typed in the name of the attorney Richard used for the will. Arthur McLeod. I had not spoken to him in years, but his number was still listed. I picked up the phone, dialed, and when his assistant answered, I said calmly, "Tell Mr. McLeod this is Margot Whitmore. I need to schedule a private consultation immediately. No family present." She hesitated for a moment before confirming. "Tomorrow, 10:00 a.m. I agreed. As I hung up, I felt something I had not felt in months. Clarity. Not rage, not grief. Clarity. For the first time since Richard passed, I felt him beside me, not just in memory, but in action, in the words he wrote, in the files he left, in the decisions he tried to prepare me for. He knew what Vanessa was, and he knew that Daniel, as much as I loved him, was too weak to stop her. But I would not yell or scream or even argue. I would use facts, paper, the law, the same quiet tools they tried to use against me. I had more power than they thought, and they were about to learn exactly how much. I did not sleep that night either. But this time, it was not from confusion or sadness. It was from planning. I laid out every document on the dining table like chess pieces. Richard's will, the house deed, the forged mortgage copy, his journal, and even the envelope Elena had found. I rehearsed what I would say to Daniel, not because I thought I could change his mind, but because I wanted to see his face when the truth came out. The next morning I dressed with purpose, slacks, flats, and the dark navy blouse Richard always said made me look like I ran the school board. I wanted to look like someone in control. I arrived at their house just after noon, unannounced. Vanessa opened the door in yoga pants and full makeup, clearly annoyed. "Oh," she said, forcing a smile. "You should have called first, Margot." "Daniel," I cut her off. "I need to speak with both of you now." The tone in my voice must have startled her because for once she did not have a snarky comeback. She called for Daniel, and they both sat across from me at the kitchen island like 2 teenagers about to be scolded. I pulled the documents from my bag and laid them down one by one. "This," I said, tapping the forged mortgage form, "has my signature on it, except I did not sign it." Daniel's face paled. Vanessa crossed her arms. "You are mistaken," she said too quickly. I looked at Daniel. "Tell me I signed this, Daniel. Look me in the eyes and tell me it is mine." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "How did you get that?" he finally asked, voice low. "Does it matter?" I said. "You committed fraud. You used my name to take out debt on a home that does not even belong to you." I slid the deed forward. "I own this house legally, fully." "Your father made sure of that," Vanessa scoffed. "We have lived here for years. You think you are just going to toss us out over some paperwork?" Her arrogance was unbelievable. "It is not some paperwork," I said, calmer than I felt. "It is proof, and I am giving you one chance to come clean." Tell me what else you have done. Tell me the truth. And I might consider not pressing charges. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear. His shoulders slumped, eyes darting around like he was searching for a trap door. It was just to cover the remodel, he muttered. We were going to pay it back. I laughed, short and sharp. You forged your mother's name. That is not a loan. That is theft. Vanessa leaned in. You are being dramatic. It is not like we tried to kill you. You are still alive, are not you? That did it. I stood. You are right. I am alive, and I plan to stay that way. Which is why, as of today, I am removing Daniel as financial power of attorney. I already filed with the lawyer this morning. All access to the joint accounts is frozen. The house is being listed this week. You will receive formal notice within the next 2 days. Vanessa stood too, face flushed. You can't do that. You are punishing your own son, your family, for one mistake. No, I said, collecting the papers. I am correcting a mistake I made when I let either of you feel entitled to something that was never yours. Daniel tried again. Mom, please, can we just talk privately? Vanessa did not mean it. We just got overwhelmed. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the boy I raised, but a man who let his wife treat his mother like garbage while he stayed silent. I thought of all the times I brought him soup when he was sick, all the nights I sat through his piano recital, cheering the loudest, and now here he was, begging for privacy after conspiring to steal from me. I am done talking privately, I said. If there is one thing I have learned, it is that secrets are how people like you two operate. I am done being quiet. I am done being polite. You have 30 days. After that, you are out. I walked to the door, and Vanessa hissed behind me. You think you are some kind of hero? You are just a bitter old woman. I turned once. Hand on the knob. Bitter than blind. I stepped out into the sun, heart pounding. And for the first time in years, I did not feel like someone's mother or someone's burden. I felt like someone with power. And I was just getting started. 3 days passed before I heard anything from them. And it came not as an apology or a legal inquiry, but as a scream. Vanessa's scream, bouncing off the walls of my voicemail like a tantrum in a marble hallway. I played the message twice, first for the words, then just to hear her tone, because nothing revealed a person faster than how they behaved when they lost control. You can't just kick us out. We have built our lives here. Daniel's kids grew up in this house. You are destroying your own family for what, pride? You are disgusting, she shrieked. I did not call back. I saved the recording and emailed it to my attorney instead. That same afternoon, I arrived at the house with a real estate agent, a woman named Marcy, who looked like she did not take nonsense from anyone and smelled like citrus and ink. As we walked through the rooms, my rooms, I noticed Vanessa had left clothes on the floor in the guest room, shoes scattered in the hallway, a wine glass on the staircase landing. All staged, no doubt, to make the place look unlivable. I ignored it. Marcy took notes, complimented the crown molding Richard had installed in, quote, 92, and we discussed the listing price. Vanessa watched us from the top of the stairs like a gargoyle. Her arms were crossed, lips pressed so tightly they looked like one straight line. You are pathetic, she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. I did not even blink. I signed the paperwork with Marcy, right there in the kitchen, and scheduled a professional cleaning team for the weekend. That is when Vanessa lost it. She came downstairs, stomping like a teenager, grabbed the wine glass off the staircase, and threw it at the wall near the fridge. It did not shatter. It bounced off and rolled under the table like a scene from a cheap soap opera. This is our house now. You are not the queen here anymore, she shouted. Daniel appeared behind her, looking like he had not shaved in 2 days. Mom, can we just talk? He said weakly, again with that pleading voice that used to work on me when he was 10. I shook my head. You forged my name. You tried to steal my home. There is nothing left to talk about. Vanessa stormed past me into the living room and yanked open drawers like she was looking for something to hurl. I swear to God, I will tell everyone you are senile. You have lost it. You do not even remember things right anymore. I pulled a paper from my bag and held it up, my new medical evaluation from a private physician, conducted 2 days earlier at Arthur McLeod's request. Certified mentally competent, I said. Signed and sealed. I had a feeling you would try that. Next, she went silent for a moment. Just a second of shocked stillness. Then she lunged forward, finger pointing, face twisted. "This is elder abuse," she screamed. "You are abusing us," I almost laughed. "You mean by holding you accountable?" I turned to Daniel. "Your father trusted you. He trusted me. And look what you have done with that trust." He opened his mouth but said nothing. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was damning. It was the sound of a child realizing he would finally push his mother too far. I walked to the front door and opened it. "The listing goes live in 48 hours. A formal notice of eviction will be served Monday. I suggest you start packing." Vanessa muttered something as I walked out, something about calling her brother, about lawyers, about public humiliation, but I did not stop to listen. I got in my car, drove around the block, and parked behind the old Tim Hortons where Richard and I used to sneak Timbits after church. I just sat there, windows cracked, listening to the wind. I was not shaking. I was not crying. I felt solid, grounded, like roots had finally formed under my feet again. And I realized in that moment that power does not come from yelling louder or playing victim. It comes from truth, from preparation, from knowing exactly what you are owed and refusing to settle for less. Vanessa had made a critical mistake. She thought I was just an old woman with too many memories and not enough backbone. She did not know I kept every receipt, every will revision, every voicemail. She did not know I would be quiet, not because I was scared, but because I would been watching. She had just made herself the enemy of a woman who had nothing left to lose, and that, I knew, was a very dangerous place for her to stand. The morning after Vanessa's meltdown, I woke up before the sun, brewed a cup of Earl Grey, and sat down with a yellow legal pad to map out everything I still needed to secure before I pulled the final lever. I was not just trying to win, I was making sure they could not claw their way back after I did. First on the list was the bank. I had already frozen the joint accounts, but now I instructed them to close the ones Daniel had access to entirely and reroute everything into a trust under my name. With an independent fiduciary, I did not trust anyone connected to him. Not anymore. The banker, a young woman named Kelsey, raised her eyebrows at the paperwork I handed over. "Your son forged this?" she asked, stunned. I did not flinch. "My attorney will be in touch if the bank fails to flag the fraud internally," I said, folding the file with clean precision. "Thank you for your time." Next were the locks. I would already called a locksmith the day before, but I rescheduled for Saturday morning, the same day Vanessa was planning some charity brunch at the house. According to the caterer's website, she would book the patio, the garden, and a champagne truck for her networking event. She must have thought I would not have the guts to act before it. That was her first mistake. I confirmed with the sheriff's department that the eviction notice would be hand-delivered Monday morning and checked in with Arthur to make sure every signature had been triple verified. I was not about to let Vanessa or Daniel poke holes in anything once everything was in motion. I returned to the house one final time, alone. I walked through every room with a notebook, taking stock of what was mine, what was left, and what they would ruin. The antique table in the foyer had scratches from someone dragging bags across it without lifting. The fireplace mantel was scuffed from God knows what. In the kitchen, the spice rack Richard had built was covered in grease. But oddly, none of that hurt me. It only made the decision clearer. They had not respected the home, the history, or the hands that built it. They treated it like a backdrop for their Instagram lives. I stood in the master bedroom doorway and saw my wedding photo still on the dresser, the frame slightly askew. I straightened it. That room had once been full of warmth. Richard's humming while brushing his teeth, the sound of old records playing on Sunday mornings. Now it was cold and sterile, like a hotel room that had been overstayed. I walked back to the hallway closet and retrieved the last of the financial folders, slipped them into my tote, and double-checked the alarm system. I would already changed the passcode, and I made sure to remove Daniel's and Vanessa's access codes from the system entirely. That evening, I met Elena for dinner at a little Mexican place off 5th Street. She showed up wearing lipstick and a denim jacket I had not seen her in before. "You look like you just fired half the world," she joked as we sat down. "I might have," I said, smirking. I told her everything, about the lawyer, the bank, the locksmith, the brunch party. She laughed when I told her the locks were being changed during the actual event. "You are cold," she said, raising a margarita to her lips. "No," I said, "I am finally warm." She leaned in. "You want me there Saturday?" I paused. "I won't stop you." She smiled. "I will bring my camera." That night, back home, I drafted one last document, an open letter to Daniel. Not to Vanessa, not to fight or argue, just to explain in writing why I was doing what I was doing. I told him how I would sat through years of tiny humiliations, let his wife chip away at me, hoping he would notice. I told him that when I heard my own son had forged my name, it broke something permanent. I reminded him of the home we built, the meals we shared, the years I put my heart into raising him, and I ended it simply, I do not need your permission to protect myself. And you no longer have mine to use my silence as a weapon. I signed it and sealed it. No return address, no PS, no begging for understanding. When I went to sleep that night, I slept harder than I had in months, because for the first time, I knew exactly what was going to happen next. And this time, it would be on my terms. Saturday arrived like a final drumbeat, steady and inevitable, and I was already dressed and out the door by 9:00 a.m. with a clean blazer, 2 copies of the sale agreement in my bag, and a fresh coat of lipstick that I had not worn since Richard's funeral. I arrived at the house before the champagne truck did, and as promised, the locksmith was waiting at the curb, tools in hand, eyes glinting with curiosity. I did not need to explain much. Everything that matters is already gone, I told him, gesturing toward the front door, and he nodded, professional and silent, while he began the process of removing Daniel and Vanessa from my home, one bolt at a time. Guests had already started to arrive by the time we were finishing. Early birds with mimosa energy and charity smiles, none of them knowing that the hostess they came to flatter would not even be able to let them in. I waited in my car until the crowd thickened, watching Vanessa buzz from person to person in her rented floral dress, waving toward photographers like she was about to announce a political campaign. Her eyes caught mine briefly across the lawn, and I smiled. She did not. She did not know yet, but I was going to make sure she did, publicly. I stepped out of my car right as the champagne truck driver approached the locked front door, confused and calling for her. Vanessa rushed over, heels stabbing at the lawn, her voice tight and shrill as she realized the key no longer worked. "It is jammed, I swear it is jammed," she said to no one in particular, trying to keep her voice calm as murmurs began to rise. That is when I stepped forward slowly, like a school principal walking into a noisy classroom. All eyes turned. "It is not jammed," I said, loud enough to cut through the music and conversation. "It has been changed." Vanessa's face froze. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed, storming over to me, trying to block my view of the growing audience. "Hosting the final farewell," I said, and from my bag I pulled out a thick manila envelope. "As of yesterday, this property has been sold. New owners take possession next month. I would advise everyone here to grab a drink fast. It might be your last one. Served on this patio." There was a ripple in the crowd. Confusion, laughter, awkward silence. Daniel emerged from the side yard, his face red and exhausted. "Mom, stop," he said quietly. "You do not have to do this here." I turned to him, calm and clear. "Actually, I do. Because every time I did it privately, you ignored me. Every time I tried to speak softly, you let her scream louder. So now I am speaking her language." I handed him the envelope. "Inside you will find copies of the sale, the eviction notice, and your forged mortgage agreement. Don't worry, I did not press charges yet." Vanessa lunged toward me, but Elena, bless her, appeared out of nowhere, stepping between us with her phone raised, recording. "Smile, Vanessa," she said. "Wouldn't want your donors missing this." Vanessa stopped short, suddenly aware of just how many phones were out, how many sideways glances were happening behind paper plates and sunglasses. "You vindictive old witch," she hissed. "You think you have won? Everyone here sees what kind of monster you are." I looked around. Most of the guests were slowly backing away, grabbing their purses, whispering apologies, and slipping toward their cars. The champagne truck driver stood awkwardly next to the gate. "Guess that is my cue," I said, turning toward Elena. "You ready?" "Always," she said, linking arms with me. We walked down the path, past the people who once laughed at me in that very backyard, past the house where I raised a boy who forgot who built his world, past the woman who thought she could break me without consequence. As I reached the sidewalk, I turned once more to see Vanessa crumpled in a patio chair, mascara streaking her face. Daniel standing over her with the envelope in one hand, guilt painted all over him. I did not smile. I did not wave. I just kept walking, because I knew this was not the end of a party. It was the beginning of my peace. And the best part, I was not even done yet. The eviction notice landed on their doorstep Monday morning at 7:42 a.m., hand-delivered by a sheriff's deputy wearing mirrored sunglasses and a no-nonsense voice that even Vanessa could not twist into something victim-like. I was not there to see it, but Elena was. She parked 2 houses down with a muffin and a coffee and said the way Vanessa screamed, "You would think someone stole her kidney." Daniel did not even argue. He stood at the door in sweatpants, took the envelope, nodded like a man who'd finally realized the execution date was real, and closed the door quietly behind him. By Thursday, the moving truck arrived. Only one, not the 3 Vanessa bragged about needing for all her designer pieces. And by Saturday, they were gone. No farewell message, no apology, not even a text from Daniel. They moved into a rental across town in a cul-de-sac, half the size of the property they once called theirs. And I only knew that because a woman from my old church group happened to live on the same street. She screamed at the movers, the woman told me over the phone, whispering like it was gossip about the mayor. He just sat on the curb and smoked. I said nothing. There was not anything to say. It was over. The house was empty for 2 weeks while final inspections were done. And during that time, I walked through it alone one last time, slowly and deliberately, like I was visiting an old friend in the hospital before they slipped away. The air smelled like lemon polish and faint regret. I touched the edges of the fireplace, the worn groove in the stair rail where Daniel used to slide down in his pajamas, the patch on the wall in the hallway where Richard once hung our wedding photo crooked, insisting it looked more romantic that way. I sat in the living room, now stripped of furniture, and let my breath echo. I was not crying. I was not angry. I was clean. The sale closed 2 days later. A young black couple with a newborn and a rescue dog, Marcus and Shelby Foster. He was an electrician. She worked from home in graphic design. They would written me a letter with their offer, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. "We have dreamed of a house like this," Shelby had written. Not just the space, but the feeling. That sentence alone made me choose them. They did not want the house for status or show, just for life, for living. I met them at the signing, shook their hands, and left the keys in a small glass bowl by the door. "You will love the kitchen in the spring," I told Shelby. "It gets morning light all the way to the sink." She smiled and squeezed my hand like we were passing a torch. That night, I drove back to my new place, a small condo near the library, walking distance to the bakery and the community garden. It did not have a fireplace, or a guest wing, or crown molding from the 80s. But it had quiet, it had freedom. And it was mine. I unpacked slowly, lit a candle Richard once bought me from a Christmas market, and opened a bottle of wine I would been saving for what I did not know. Maybe this, maybe now. Elena came by around 8 with takeout and a bottle of soda, and we sat on my new balcony, watching the city hum below. "You did it," she said simply. "You did not just win. You freed yourself." I nodded, staring at the sky. "I did not know how heavy it was until I let it go," I said. "I kept trying to carry that house, that family, like it was still what it used to be. But it is not, and I am not." She raised her cup to never letting anyone treat us like the help again. I laughed, then froze, remembering that first moment at the party, the insult that started it all, the way Vanessa's words stung and lingered. "You look like my maid," she would said. Funny thing was, the woman she tried to compare me to, Elena, turned out to be more family than either of them ever were. And in the end, it was not the title that defined me. It was the truth, and I had it all now. Documented, notarized, signed, sealed, and delivered. 2 weeks after the Fosters moved in, I found myself doing something I had not done in over a decade. I rearranged my bookshelves, not out of necessity, but because I finally had the energy to care about the order of things again. I was halfway through alphabetizing the fiction section when Elena showed up at my door with a wide grin, a bottle of mid-shelf red wine, and a manila folder tucked under her arm. "Got something to show you," she said, stepping in like she owned the place, And honestly, at that point, she kinda did. She placed the wine on the table, opened the folder, and slid a glossy document across the counter toward me. A small business license under her name, titled Elena's Home Harmony Cleaning and Organization Services. I blinked, then laughed. You went legit, I asked, and she grinned even wider. Not just legit. I have got 5 regular clients already, 1 part-time girl I am training, and 2 referrals waiting in my inbox. Turns out people are happy to pay for what I have been doing for scraps for years. I touched the document, felt the weight of it. You used to say you would never work for yourself, I said. You said you did not know how. She nodded. Serious now. I did not. Until I watched you burn your whole life down and start over with a straight back. You reminded me I am not just someone in the background. I am the reason some of those places run. I poured 2 glasses of wine and handed her one. You are the reason I did not fall apart, I said. You pulled me out of the fog when I did not even know I was in one. She sipped, then leaned in slightly. You know, Vanessa tried to call me twice, left a voicemail, acting like nothing happened, said she wanted to make peace and maybe talk about future opportunities. My eyebrows shot up. You are kidding. Elena shook her head. She must have thought I would feel bad, that I would be desperate. She did not understand that once someone learns their worth, they do not go backward for a seat at a rotted table. I laughed harder than I had in months, full belly and everything. Elena raised her glass again. To self-employment, she said. To boundaries, I added. To dignity, she said. To silence broken, I replied. We clinked, and it was not just 2 women toasting over wine. It was a ceremony, an exorcism, a release. Later that night, after she left and the dishes were washed, I sat on my balcony and thought about how strange it was that the person who ended up by my side was not blood, wasn't someone I raised, but someone I once paid to mop my floors. And yet, she was the only one who truly saw me, who did not ask me to shrink or disappear or be grateful just for being tolerated. Elena had built a new business, yes, but more than that, she had built herself a new spine, and watching her made me want more too. Not revenge, not chaos, just a life that felt mine. I pulled out my notebook, the one I used to keep grocery lists in, and began a new page. At the top, I wrote, Next. Underneath, I listed 3 things. Join the local book club. Visit the art museum downtown I always said I would see. And finally, sign up for those watercolor classes Richard once teased me about. He used to say I would be dangerous if I ever stopped putting everyone else first. And now maybe I was. Not in a cruel way, but in a firm, quiet, deliberate way. Elena was right. Once you see your own value, there is no going back, and I was not going to. I wrote the letter on a Thursday afternoon, with the windows open and the sound of someone's wind chimes clinking softly outside, like a slow exhale. It was not to Daniel, and certainly not to Vanessa. I had already said everything I needed to say to them with silence and signatures. No, this letter was for my grandchildren, Lila and Thomas, 2 sweet, sharp-eyed kids who did not ask to be born into anyone's mess, who had hugged me the last time I saw them without hesitation or judgment. I would wait to write it until the noise had settled, until my own thoughts had stopped spinning, because I did not want it to come from anger. I wanted it to come from truth. I told them about the house, how it was not just walls and rooms, but memories, chipped tile, where their dad once threw a basketball indoors and broke the lamp. The drawer that stuck in the kitchen because I kept extra batteries in it like some sort of superstition. The garden where the grandfather once grew the world's most stubborn tomatoes. I told them it was okay to feel confused or hurt or even mad at me. I told them the story their parents might spin about the house being stolen would not be true. But I did not ask them to pick sides. I asked them only to remember that love does not disappear just because people fail at showing it. I tucked in 2 pictures, one of me and Richard on the porch in '89, and one from Lila's last birthday party, the one where she wore a paper crown and made me pinky promise I would never forget to bring her extra sprinkles next time. I told them they could come visit me whenever they wanted. No pressure, no loyalty test, just an open door, cookies in the jar, and a woman who still knew how to play Go Fish. When I sealed the envelope, I did not feel triumphant. I felt tender, peaceful, like I would finally close a chapter without slamming it shut. That weekend, I donated the last of Richard's books to the local library and took myself to a community watercolor class. I was not good. Not yet. But there was something freeing about watching colors bleed into one another without rules or outlines, just motion and instinct. That night I made spaghetti for one, lit a candle, and read a mystery novel in bed with the windows cracked open and a cup of mint tea on the nightstand. No text, no drama, no waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just quiet. Just me. Elena texted me a photo of her new business cards and a screenshot of a 5-star review a client left her. "She saved my house and my sanity," the woman wrote, and I texted back, "She does that." I thought of Vanessa sometimes, usually not for long, usually just in moments where silence hung heavy and memory crept in. I did not hate her. I pitied her. Because a woman like that, who builds her whole life on control and appearances, never really feels safe, even when she wins. And Daniel, I wished him peace. I hoped he would grow a spine someday, maybe even figure out what it means to be a son again. But that was not my job anymore. My job was done. I would protected what mattered. I would reclaimed what was mine. And more importantly, I would build something new, not out of spite or bitterness, but from the solid ground of knowing who I was, even when others tried to bury it. As I turned off the lights and climbed into bed that night, the room warm and quiet and full of small, ordinary joy, I whispered into the dark, "I am home." And for the first time in a long, long time, I meant it.